And I'm Ashley.
And you're watching Ed and Ashley's 5-Minute Show. La da 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 da. Hi there, I am back with Jo Miller again, and she's just going to go over some quick wins that you can do to start making a really big impact right away.
Thanks, Ed. By the way, can I just stop and say how awesome that we coordinated Ed's hair with my skirt. We're like a perfect match.
It's true.
Totally planned.
I did. I called Jo the other day and I said, "What are you wearing? I'd like to dye my hair
To match the outfit. Thank you, Ed.
I tried.
So, as Ed said, 3 ways to generate quick wins if you're finding that you're having a tough time with office politics. I ended up my session with 3 ways to just quickly skill up and generate some quick wins for yourself. So the first one is appropriate for people who are kind of early in your career, not yet very established. So my recommendation is that in every team, in every organization, there's usually someone who's really, really good at navigating. So find who that person is and befriend them, get to know them, and ask some questions. You know, like you might just say to them, "Hey, you're really good at navigating. You understand who's who. What can you share with me so I can understand better the organization, a bit of the history, and how I can navigate effectively?" So who to look out for? Well, this is someone who navigates and interacts well with people at all levels. They tend to be the keeper of what I call the institutional memory, or you might have heard it said, they know where the bodies are buried. So someone with some tenure, some longevity in the organization who's kind of seen the changes come and go and can help you understand a little bit of that history. It's also the type of person who can kind of come in new to a group or a meeting and get a quick read and quickly find their footing and understand maybe who the key influencers are. So look out for who these people are. Befriend them, maybe share with them some information because they probably want to hear what you have observed and what you've had to say, but they can be very helpful in helping you get up to speed quickly and just navigate any organizational politics. So that's tip number 1. The second tip for generating a quick win, and again, this is appropriate for someone kind of early on in your career, and it's to cultivate an influential coalition for yourself. I was speaking with Judy Priest from Cisco recently. She's actually a distinguished engineer, and she said, you know, oftentimes we think that you need a senior level leader to be your influencer to make stuff happen. But she observed that sometimes it's faster and easier to make things happen with a grassroots coalition. So think about who is among you, among your peers, who is kind of a like-minded individual, who's working on stuff that you feel supportive of, who you'd like to see grow and develop in their career, and go out of your way to support them and help them in what you know the goals that are important to them. And then over time, when you feel that that trust and mutual respect is built, do not be afraid to ask that person to help you out with something that's important to you. So build your influential coalition of like-minded peer advocates, and don't be afraid to call on them when there's something that you'd like their help to influence and make happen. So finally, tip number 3, and this is more for the people who are kind of more senior level or mid-level in your career, because you need to have accumulated some credibility, be respected, to have built some scope of influence in order to use this one. But in every organization, there are unwritten, unspoken rules of the game. Things you won't find written in the employee handbook that might even be the opposite of that. For example, in one workshop group I spoke to, a woman on one side of the room said, "In my team, everyone knows that you should never move forward and make a big change or launch a new project or initiative without getting buy-in and support from the entire team. But once you have that, it's okay to proceed." All right? So that was the rule of the game in her team. Now, on the other side of the room, another woman raised her hand and she said, "Well, in my group, it's kind of different. Everyone knows you should act first and ask for forgiveness later." So notice how they're kind of the opposite of each other. And in order to get anything done and be productive and not feel like you were beating your head against the wall, you would need to know what those unwritten, unspoken rules of the game were. So here's my final tip. Look, if you don't like the game that's being changed, if it crosses over a boundary for you in terms of your values or ethics, or it's just not who you are, you don't need to play the game, but you do need to be aware of it. So discover what the game is that is being played, and then you empower yourself to have a choice. Now, if you're early on in your career and don't have a lot of influence yet, you might have to find a workaround, just another way of doing things to be effective. But if you have established some influence and credibility, you can become a game changer. So pay attention to the scope of your influence. And as soon as you've got enough credibility and are trusted and respected in your team, you can be a game changer. You don't have to play the game that is being played if you don't agree with it. And I'll share a quick example. So a few years ago at the Grace Hopper celebration on a panel, I saw Nora Denzel speak. And at the time, she was a senior vice president with Intuit. And she said earlier on in her career, she was a mid-level manager in a startup, and a lot of the informal social networking took place late at night in bars. And for that time in her life, it did not work for her. So as soon as she felt she had the credibility, she suggested that they institute a Friday afternoon happy hour in the office to bring that informal networking in. And so she actually became a game changer. So don't be afraid once you've built the scope of influence and credibility to say, look, I don't like the game that's being changed, and suggest a productive alternative, and know that there will probably be other people in the team who are really grateful, but they're just not there yet in terms of their own level of influence. So those would be my 3 top tips for if you're having trouble navigating office politics and want some ways just to generate some quick wins for yourself.